1-0 10-inning victory over the Atlanta Braves.
And what a show they've put on these past few months, and what an emotionally charged crowd this is. What a thrill it was for this crowd to see some of the plays from the World Series replayed on the big screen here in the Metrodome, and a chance to recognize all these players. I think as far as this crowd is concerned, this could have gone on and on and on.
Not just the players who enjoyed, I mean, the fans who enjoyed watching the video screen, the players as well were just transfixed on the scoreboard. They didn't want to let go of it themselves. They kept looking and looking, and I've talked to a number of the players who have looked at their VCRs hundreds of times already, watching their favorite plays of the World Series.
Speaking of the scoreboard, I don't know if we got a shot of this, but the final game score is still up on the scoreboard, the 1-0 win over the Braves.
Well, I think the editorial in the St. Paul Pioneer Press may have said it best today when they said the Field of Dreams moved north from Iowa to Minnesota this agonizingly sweet October of 1991.
And as the team makes their final lap around this Metrodome, around the field, the flash bulbs are popping as people try and get one last look, one last picture of their champion Minnesota Twins.
That was a look at the victory lap on Sunday night when the players just remained on the field after beating the Atlanta Braves. And here's one last look at the Twins in street clothes today. And Bob Casey may have said it best, but this might be your last look. Like it or not, there's just some natural attrition that takes place with baseball teams or any other successful sports team when this team will not be the same. But who can forget what happened in '91?
The totals on the board are correct. The Twins are world champions. Thank you, and good afternoon.
You know,
well, Bob Casey's final announcement, the totals on the board are correct, as he says after every game. This is one to remember. 1 run, 10 hits, no errors for the Twins. No runs, 7 hits, no errors for the Atlanta Braves. We saw Colleen, both ends of the spectrum there as the players walked off the field. There's Jack Morris at the age of 36. A lot of people felt that his best years were certainly behind him when he came to Minnesota. It was considered a big risk to sign a guy who had come off 2 mediocre years, but in Jack's defense, he didn't have much help in Detroit the last couple of years. And the other end of the spectrum, you have a Chuck Knobloch, wide-eyed, coming off a spring training, spending all his time in the minors the year before, with the exception maybe of a couple weeks with the Twins. In fact, I remember Knobloch's first day at training camp. We were down there, and who did he face? Jack Morris in batting practice. Well, Morris was not about to take it easy on this rookie. He threw him one of those nasty fork balls that started about a chest high and ended up at his shoe tops. Knobloch walked out of there and just started shaking his head, and Morris sort of winked at him and went, "Welcome to the bigs, Rook." Well, there's a situation where both men contributed mightily to the cause.
Oh, what a wonderful afternoon this has been. Scott Reynolds is down on the field. Let's go down to Scott.
Thank you, Colleen. It seemed the team really enjoyed this just as much as the fans. In fact, when Ken Herbeck stepped off the bus this morning at Holman Field in St. Paul, he had his little handy cam rolling just like he did when he walked onto the field here at the Metrodome, trying to capture all these moments that he knows he'll cherish the rest of his life. A lot of the volunteers who helped out all the way from Holman Field in St. Paul to here at the Metrodome sneaked up to the players and tried to get autographs, and they gave them to everybody that they could. And those volunteers who gave so much time deserved that at least. And now this season has come to a close, and these players will go on from here to many different cities. Some of them will be staying here, of course, as well. And Chuck Knobloch said, next season, I'm buying a house up here. The Houston kid even will settle down in Minnesota as this team continues its success, it hopes, in the next year. Back to you, Mark and Colleen.
I think it's so right when he says these players enjoyed it as much as these fans did. Greg Gagne doing cartwheels out onto the field today. They don't disappoint whether they're on the playing field or receiving the athletes.
You know, and so much time that we end up spending on our nightly newscasts in sports talking about negotiating, renegotiating, who's going to come up with what contract, to the point where I know we get tired, I have to say nothing of the fans, but you spent some time in what's going on the last couple of weeks, not just this series, but the Toronto series, and there's not one mention of, hey, how much money are we going to make out of this thing? All they want is that ring on their finger. That's what drives them. The salary takes care of itself. They're not worried about that. But these guys all are grown men playing a little boy's game. Don't ever forget that. And there's so much spirit that exists in Major League ball today still. And there are guys who don't play the game with that sort of zest. But these guys were so excited yesterday because they returned to the Metrodome, not just to clean out their lockers, but to get that ring finger sized up. And come first game next year back at the Metrodome, that's when they'll be presented with those World Championship rings again.
Speaking of the rings, last night during our special, someone asked Greg Gagne what he was going to do with his second World Series ring, and he said he now had two, one for each of his boys to pass on to them. What a thrill for him to have been involved in both of these World Series.
We're going to return with more from the Metrodome in just a minute.